FOMO. I've been all over the world working with leaders and CEOs all over the world. They're building companies, they're setting goals, they're doing annual forecasts. They've got people, their managers are managing people, and in a remote workplace, it's really difficult. And the thing is, everybody's setting goals, but there's no science to it. And I'm just stunned. And so the world is run by zombie goal theories like SMART goals, which should die, but they haven't died yet, because that is mishmash jargon syndrome.
I'm Patrick J. McGinnis, and I coined the term FOMO. That's short for fear of missing out, and it's why some people end up following the crowd when they should be blazing a trail of their own. But if you want to achieve greatness in business and life, you've got to break free. Come on, I'll show you how. This is FOMO Sapiens, where we explore how entrepreneurial thinkers find the inspiration and the courage to build exceptional lives. Welcome back to FOMO Sapiens, the show for entrepreneurial thinkers. I'm your host, Patrick J. McGinnis, and today we are talking to Caroline Adams Miller, author of Big Goals, A New Approach to Goal Setting and Achievement. For over 3 decades, Caroline has been a pioneer with her groundbreaking work in the areas of science, in the science of goal setting, grit, happiness, and success. She's recognized as one of the world's leading positive psychology experts on this research and is the author of 9 books, including Creating Your Best Life, which the father of positive psychology, Dr. Martin Seligman, lauded in his book Flourish as adding a major missing piece to the world of goal setting. She's a magna cum laude, graduate of Harvard University and attained one of the first 32 degrees in the world of applied positive psychology from the University of Pennsylvania. Welcome to the show, Caroline.
Thank you. This is great. I already like you. I like our pre-chat here. Gosh, we have a vibe going. So just, go anywhere you want with this. But thank you. That was very generous.
Yeah, we were burning up the green room, and we're gonna go first to the place we always go on this show, which is this question I like to ask all of my guests. And I have a feeling that you will bring something spicy to the table here. My question is this: tell me something unexpected you learned about yourself that changed everything.
So as somebody who grew up in a competitive family with Olympic great uncles, gold medalists, silver, bronze medalists, when I went back to school, got into that class at Penn in 2005, I didn't care about any of my grades. I was just hungry for the knowledge. So instead of being competitive to see how I could score, I was just competitive with how great can this be? And I'm not even sure I looked at my grades. So, it was interesting that I just didn't care. It was the experience of education, being with people, being in a pioneering field that was changing lives, changed my life. So that's the first thing that comes to mind.
I love that you did. Okay, so I had the same experience. I was a grade grubber in high school. I lived in the library in college. And then when I graduated, I remember thinking, like, I didn't really meet I made some friends, right? But I didn't meet like the friends that I thought I was going to meet in college. And I actually cried when I graduated thinking like I'd missed out.
Yeah.
Now, I ended up meeting people from my year in college in New York that are my closest friends now. But when I went off to grad school, I expressly said, I'm optimizing for connectivity and not for grades. Now, Thankfully, Harvard Business School didn't disclose grades at that time. So that was helpful. But I did the same thing.
What do you mean they disclosed grades?
You didn't get to, they weren't allowed to disclose grades. So you just had to pass, and then that was it.
Oh, and now the average grade undergrad at Harvard is an A-, which is just ridiculous. The grade inflation is absurd.
I know. I guess the point is that it's good to know what you're there for, and using that yardstick of grades, the external validator may not get you all that far.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's that very famous line. It's an extrinsic motivator. Money and external rewards are not motivators. And what motivated me was, my God, I am going back to school at midlife to study something that lights me up, that's going to make me a better coach. I don't care about the grades, and this is just going to be a game changer. And it was. I came out of it different. Everyone comes out of that program different, which you saw in the book Flourish. And I remember saying to Marty, you go to dental school, you come out a dentist. You go to medical school, you come out a doctor. You come into this program, you come out completely transformed as a human, as a at least for me, sister, daughter, wife, mother. I mean, I'm not the same person. And I think that's the common experience there.
Yeah, so that book Flourish, which I read right before the pandemic, not realizing what was about to come, is a really good read. And you were cited in that book as having contributed something very important to the world of goal setting. I want to start just by asking this question. So goal setting. So not a new topic. Plenty of ink spilled about that. Why did you feel that it was the time for you to write a book on this topic?
Well, it's my second book on this topic. My capstone that year in the MAP program was Creating Your Best Life. And that capstone was that book became a book, was the first mass market book to ever introduce Locke and Latham's goal setting theory to the world. 10 years later, John Doerr wrote Measure What Matters, the venture capitalist who invested in Google. He had it in the introduction of his book. But I was the first in 2008, then Doerr comes along 10 years later. But honestly, for a theory that's ranked number one of 73 management theories, number one, no replication crises. And for something that we seem to take for granted, setting goals correctly so that we have, the best possible chance of succeeding. I'm shocked that 15 years after that book came out, nobody still knows the science of goal setting or goal setting theory. And I've been all over the world working with leaders and CEOs all over the world. They're building companies, they're setting goals, they're doing annual forecasts. They've got people, their managers are managing people, and in a remote workplace, it's really difficult. And the thing is, everybody's setting goals, but there's no science to it. And I'm just stunned. And so the world is run by zombie goal theories like SMART goals, which should die, but they haven't died yet, because that is mishmash jargon syndrome. It's just urban legends and all kinds of junk in the field of goal setting. And I think it's just because everyone thinks they know how to do it, or they turn on a podcast. There's so many dude podcasts, by the way, men talking to men about men, special forces, military heroes, et cetera, et cetera. And I think people just get these exemplars of bravery or of excellence or courage or, taking the hill. And they think, oh, okay, well, that's a method to set goals. Well, it's not. It doesn't work for everybody. Where's the science? So we have defaulted to these exemplars of, courage or grit, but it's still mostly men. And if you go to Wikipedia, for example, 82% of the biographies are of men, 18% are of women. And so it's really difficult to set goals and believe you have the ability to achieve those goals when you don't have anyone who feels like you, who sounds like you, who looks like you out in the world. So we're just defaulting to all these descriptions of courageous, brave people. Not that there's nothing to learn from them, but it's not science and it should be replaced.
All right. So there's a lot in there. There's two things I want to highlight here. Number one is SMART goals. What we're going to do today, we're going to do we're going to kill SMART goals in a very nice way. We're just going to put them down. You know what I mean? Euthanasia, but very compassionate, because I agree with you. All of it just really, I think it's just, I hadn't even heard of them until 2 years ago. And then when you hear about them, you feel like you have to use them because everybody knows what that lingo is. But let's move beyond that because I hear what you're saying. And the second is, yes, we are also going to move outside the manosphere because, there's a lot of knowledge to be extracted out of that besides what you're saying. So let's talk about, you mentioned people don't know goal setting theory. Define and explain what is goal setting theory for us.
Okay. Thank you. It's Locke and Latham, and it's Edwin Locke and Gary Latham, both still alive. You probably learned this at Harvard Business School. It's the number one ranked management theory of 73 theories on motivation and psychology, has instant application to everyone's lives. It's the peers, ranked it number one. And what they did was they worked separately, and then they came together and published goal setting theory in 1990. And what it did was very simple and elegant, very parsimonious, very simple. And they made it that way deliberately. And what they said is there are two kinds of goals. There's learning goals where you have to acquire skills and knowledge in order to achieve a goal. And then there's performance goals, which I prefer to call checklist goals, because it's things you've done before, like a pre-flight check-in or a maid cleaning a hotel room. It's things you've done before that you could fit on a checklist. And those are the goals that you can start by saying, I want this excellent outcome by this date. And you can do that because you know how to achieve your outcome. what Locke and Latham, and you can't do that for learning goals. You have to give yourself the grace period of learning how to do this. And this is where everything goes wrong in the business world. We could talk about goals gone wild. But what they found was both kinds of goals, the best outcomes are challenging and specific, whether it's a learning goal or a performance goal. And the reason why SMART goals ought to die is because the consultant who dreamt it up in the early 80s and published an article somewhere, it was just sticky. And we shouldn't use it because it is, as I said, jargon mishmash syndrome. It's actually been found to undermine goal accomplishment or even outstanding goal accomplishment, because if you use the word reasonable or reachable or attainable for any of those letters in SMART, you're instantly undercutting a key part of goal setting theory, which is challenging and specific goals will always get the highest and best outcomes. So forget attainable, forget realistic, forget reachable. And by the way, no one agrees on the acronym, so it's even more worthless.
FOMO. So the key is challenging and specific.
Yes.
Let's talk about, so imagine I call you up, I'm the CEO of a company, and I say, Caroline, I'm like, can I get a free coaching session with you right now? Okay. And I'm like, you know what? I really need your help because it's been a challenging year. We're trying to get the business back on track. I need to figure out and set some goals. And then, and I maybe I've read this, this goal theory. So I know that, okay, I need to have learning goals and I need to have checklist goals. Like, how do we formulate those goals?
Well, what you have to start with, I do work with a lot of CEOs, so this is a really familiar conversation to me, and they're always just grateful to know that they don't have the science. But you start with, where are you going? What's the vision? Imagine going to the top of a mountain, getting in the car. Where are you going? Where are you going to stop along the way? How do you know you're making progress? And so the first thing you say is, why have you set that goal? What's the meaning of it? Explain to me how it aligns with your values or your company's values. And then you have to kind of break it down. How are you going to get there? Do you know how to get there? Do you have the car? Do you know how to drive the car? Is it stick shift? Is it automatic? Do you know who you want in the car with you? Because, people's moods are contagious. So who's going to help you get to the top of the mountain? Who should not be in the car? What kind of investments do you have to make to get there? And you go through that. And that's my bridge methodology. You start with goal setting theory and you add on this acronym bridge, which breaks down into 6 buckets where I have prompts that force you to go through every aspect that matters for making a strategy that has the highest possible likelihood of succeeding. And it's all evidence-based. And so I also take a look at decision-making, which most people don't look at. They just, make a decision that's availability heuristics or anchoring bias or whatever, but noise. Daniel Kahneman's work on noise is where I start with people. Where are the noisy decisions that you're making that are creating so much variability in whether you go forward or you kill it off? I love the way Annie Duke talks about bets, thinking in bets. So Texas Hold'em poker is woven into my book. So we talk about that. Where are you going? How are you going to get there? How will you know you're getting there? What are the metrics? Is it a learning goal? Is it a performance goal? How much time are you going to give yourself to make this challenging and specific, to add this knowledge or these skills? Where will you go? And we break it out in tremendous detail, and you take the time to create a great strategy, because it's not all about the action. Sometimes it's about building the platform that you have to jump off of. And so this is why I wrote the book, because there's so much science stuck in academia that has not made its way out. And so consequently, the mass market does not have one book, just one book, that includes all the science on how to set, pursue, and achieve goals. And I was determined that post-COVID, the world was thrown into a learning goal condition identical to after the Black Death in the Middle Ages. And we are in a renaissance right now, but everything's being done in new ways. We're in a learning goal condition where we have to be curious and gritty, with a growth mindset about how are we going to do all these things we're doing, going to the moon, drones delivering groceries, et cetera. How are we going to do this and make it better than the way we did it before? And so, everyone has to be in a learning goal condition, which means, it's going to take you longer to accomplish the goals that you did before. And you might as well buckle up and learn the science, because that also happened after the bubonic plague. And that's what led to the Renaissance.
Yeah. And we are going through a time of transformation with massive new technology and lots of upheaval and kinds of stuff like that. And navigating that's really hard. Again, going back to that example, I'm that CEO that comes in and I say, well, I know where I want to go. I want to, it's January 1st. By the end of this year, I need to have raised $20 million of additional capital. And I want to grow our sales from $3 million to $10 million.
Yeah.
Is that a good place to start, or you're gonna, or have I messed up there?
No, this is pretty common, but it's not very thoughtful, unfortunately. If somebody hasn't,
good.
Well, no, I'm not saying you're not thoughtful. I'm saying if somebody just comes in and throws out, I've got to raise this much money. Okay, why? Why that much money? Explain to me where that's going to get you. How'd you break that down? And you want to 3x, 5x, 10x your results? Well, what tells you that the market conditions will support that? Because then what you get is goals gone wild. You get the Ford Pinto, the Titan submersible, you get Enron, you get the VW emissions scandal. You just get people who go 10x the results, but they don't have the skills or the knowledge to actually do the things they say they want to do, must do to make money. And so when you turn a learning goal, like Boeing needed to innovate, Airbus beat them to it, innovate a long-haul passenger plane that could fly further, it had more, fuel on the plane, so it was heavier. When you turn that into a performance goal and say, we'll have it out in a year or two, so American Airlines, don't give them your order, wait for us. And they turned it into a performance goal when they should have taken the time that they knew they needed to take in order to not lose all those lives. And now you've got doors going off the planes. I mean, it's a disaster. They will never recover their reputation. And this is what happens when you mix up learning goals and performance goals. And this is existential to me. Just learn goal setting theory. Start there. Is it a learning goal or a performance goal? Don't mix it up and give yourself time to learn the skills, whatever it takes.
It makes a lot of sense to me. It's like I started with, and that happens all the time. I started with the thing that probably somebody told me I had to do. Like my board member said, I got to raise $20 million and in order to raise the next round after that, I got to increase revenue. What I didn't start with is I want to learn what our customers need so that we can design a product that truly is scalable within their organization.
Right.
That's the learning goal.
I got to tell you, I run into this all the time. And when you've got a board that is, run by your investors, if you happen to IPO or, sell your founding CEO, you end up with this grace period for a short period of time where you're allowed to kind of still feel like you're entrepreneurial. But for the most part, they're breathing down your neck, 3x, 5x, 10x, and they're not going to give you learning goal opportunities. I do work with CEOs who will share my research or my reportings of the research. I haven't done the research. I simply translate it and apply it so people can use it to explain why they shouldn't have their feet held to the fire to innovate some new product in a month. I mean, it's just so unrealistic the way Amazon does this to people or other companies. It's not fair. This is where you get worker turnover, you get disengagement, you get people cheating. That's called faux grit. They want people to think they did the work, but they fake it. It's like performance enhancing drugs or making up your PhD research. So, you got to get it right. And boards of directors need to sit back and say, what is best for this company long term? And it's going to be to set the goals right from the beginning, because that's the cornerstone of whether or not the company is going to make it.
And so when I'm going through that process of formulating performance goals and learning goals, how do I, I feel like this is a stupid question, but I feel it's like
not. I
it's
promise
a natural
it's not.
question. It's a safe space. Is how do I know what is the right amount of goals to set for myself so that I can do those things without spreading myself too thin?
Yeah. Well, there's a couple variables in that answer. Some people can juggle more than others. Some people are monofocused, but generally the brain can take on like 3 to 5 challenges at once. And you don't want to have all your eggs in one basket. That's where you have what's called obsessive passion as opposed to harmonious passion. And you can just start to think that goal is you and you are that goal. And you have to, have some space in your brain for other things, because You need to disengage and you get some great brainstorms. And so that's where I would start is 3 to 5 goals. They'd have to be explained why. Why are those your goals? Where did they come from? What did you do last year? What are you building on? What did you learn? I mean, this is like NASA with the Challenger explosion. You've got to have an archive of lessons learned from previous years, both good and bad, because that is where you build the framework of your decision making, and you begin to see where you're heading and what matters. And you have to stay ahead of the curve. That's the other thing. You have to be looking into the future all the time, not just what is in the next year or so. So I'm working with a space company right now, and they just, closed their Series B funding, 160 million. And, they're not asking where are we going to be in 6 months. They're asking where are we going to be in 5 years, and how do we hire for that? What are the mindsets of the engineers we have to hire for that? And so on. So that's how I do it.
And in terms of the mix between performance goals and checklist goals, how does one think about that?
Okay, so a performance goal is a checklist goal.
I'm sorry, a learning goal. Excuse me.
No, I know it is confusing. So could you ask the question again? What about the checklist goal?
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, so I have 3 to 5 goals that I'm going to set, and I have my learning goals and my performance or checklist goals.
Yep.
Is there how do I think about that, sort of balancing those out in the portfolio of goal setting?
You want to have what's called leveraged goals, where the accomplishment of one goal makes it more likely that you're going to accomplish another goal, so that you don't have this classic situation called goals in conflict. 2 important goals, but pursuing one means the other one essentially can get stalemated. So that's why I always assign best possible future self, so that we get a look at who you are in the future. The more acquainted you are with yourself in the future, your company in the future, the more likely you are to get this right. And so what you want is a mixture of learning that supports the accomplishment of the performance or checklist goals. You might also want to have learning that is about the future. That's your R&D. Because what do learning goals do? They engage people with curiosity. The pressure is off to perform right away. And in companies that don't have mentoring systems, every mentoring system I look at is for the most part broken. They say they have them, but they don't. Companies have cut R&D. So you're on your own to figure this stuff out. You may never even be asked if you have the skills to do it. But when you have the ability to say, I don't know how to do this, but I'm going to go take a micro course in how to build this data architecture, or I'm going to go take a micro course on how to add AI to routinizing some of the things in the company. Then what you can do is say, here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to make it challenging and specific. By Friday, I'll tell you whether or not this course is working for me. And so what you do is you have people engaged in the process of pursuing their goals, and they tend to be happier. You get more creativity, you get more breakthroughs, and it supports the performance goals or the checklist goals. So you want to have a mixture that engages you, some a little bit more, some a little bit less. In some of these, I just spoke to Atlassian last night and this morning, and that is just such an interesting, well-run company, so futuristic, but they're always looking at what's in the future and dealing with customers' needs now, but also looking at the future. And then they have, every month they have Ship It, which is like Google's 20% time. Everyone should do that. Everyone should live that way. So I hope I'm answering that for you.
FOMO.
Yeah, you are. Now, before we go to our lightning round at the end, I do want to ask you one final question. You referenced this earlier, but give us a brief overview of the bridge framework that you talked about, which is about bridging to the future.
Sure. What I realized I needed to do when I said we have to learn goal setting theory, these men did rigorous scholarship research. They must be credited for doing the hard work. So you start with that. And then, because I love research and I love education, there's all this new research on relationships, on contagion, on grit, on mindset, on character strengths, on flourishing. For example, happiness precedes success. That alone is a game changer. So what does that mean? How do you boot up your well-being in order to make it possible to be more successful? So I bucketed it into 6 different areas, and I've been playing with it for 15 years. And what I have is brainstorming, relationships, investments, decision-making, good grit, and excellence. And there's a series of prompts that build upon each other that allow you to create a strategy step by step by step. And it's all science-based and it's all cutting edge. And it really has not been put out into the world. In fact, we're just starting now to break down very familiar advice that we put into the world of motivation and success and ask it the question, does this work for women as well as it works for men? And I'll give just one example. Adam Grant's book, Give and Take. I like Adam. I know Adam. But he told me, and he said that the book Give and Take, which lionizes the idea of just giving and giving without strings, and that's how you succeed. Well, he says now he got it wrong, that it doesn't work for women. Women are expected to give, but they don't get benefits for me givers in the workplace. And when you have boundaries about, over giving, and you not getting your work done, you're seen as uncooperative. Or too ambitious. So we have to take a look now, and we are doing that. We're parsing the research. And I wanted to put this in the book because we've never blown up goal setting like this. It is one of the least disrupted fields since 1881. And we have to now take all this fantastic science we have out there with artificial intelligence and words and linguistics and the rest of it and say, does it work for everyone? And let's take a look at what the science is telling us that makes the most sense for the most people. So that's what I've done.
That's very cool. And there's so much in this book. I love the amount of sort of research that's gone into it. I mean, that is not typical, if I'm honest, when it comes to business books. Well done. Let's jump to the lightning round, shall we? Now it's my chance to ask you hard questions again.
I love gamification. Let's go.
All right. Number 1, what's a favorite quote?
You can't keep what you don't give away.
I don't even know what that means. You want to tell me?
Yeah. I overcame bulimia almost 40 years ago, back when it was a death sentence. And as I got better, I looked around. The world did not have any first-person accounts. It was a hopeless condition. And so I wrote my first book, was called My Name is Caroline. It was the first autobiography of anyone who overcame bulimia. And I was in these 12-step meetings, getting into recovery a day at a time, month at a time. I mean, just unbelievable. It's like I had my life back. And I remember someone tapped me on the chest one day and said, it's great that you're getting better, Caroline, but you can't keep what you don't give away. And that's the day I found out what happiness was about, what joy was about, what giving was about. And that gave me my purpose. So that's why I wrote that book. And there's been a thread through all of my books. This is my 9th book. They all pertain to doing hard things and having the tools to do those hard things. And it started with that. You can't keep what you don't give away.
I love that. Amazing. Okay, number 2. This is a new question, but I like it. Favorite use case for ChatGPT?
What?
Do you use ChatGPT? And if so, what's your favorite thing to do with it?
Dude, I am down the rabbit hole. I am so down the rabbit hole. I'm building my own large language model. Have I answered your question? I love perplexity.
Okay. I love it. Okay.
Yeah.
Can we have to ever end this? Can we just stay here forever?
Oh, fun. Okay.
Number 3, a piece of advice you give to your younger self.
Take a look at the people around you who say they support you, but their words don't match what they say they are doing, because there's research showing that if you share big goals, dreams, success with people and they don't respond with curiosity and enthusiasm, they're going to knife you in the back and take you and your dreams down. So I wish I had hit the little red button on the smoke alarm and just tested that more by floating, fake success and big ideas to just see what was that person's response, because it tells you who they are. Believe them.
Yeah, it's true. Like sometimes, just listen to what people are saying to you. They mean it, right? That's a really good one.
And women really make the mistake of surrounding themselves with frenemies, and they pay a price for it far more than men do. There's a mean girl culture that doesn't have to exist, but we've begun to expect it and describe it as such. And so it's another zombie way of living that won't die.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've witnessed that, and I'm glad you said it.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4 and final. What's your most important memory?
Oh, boy. No one's asked me that.
I know. We do things differently.
Gosh, okay. My most important memory. A most important memory. There's so many that are coming to mind, but I remember the birth of my first child, and he was almost 10 pounds. And because of my eating disorder, I'd never had my period till I was 22. And there was so much damage to my body that I didn't think I could have children. And when this beautiful, huge, blonde boy was born, I remember thinking, my body has been fixed. And I heard the nurses say, he's so heavy. You know, life hasn't been the same. I had 3 kids, but that was the moment. It was like, my God, I fixed the damage. Thank you, God.
Wow. That's an incredible image. Thank you for sharing it. Now, we've talked a lot about today, and if you talked a lot about a lot of things today, and if you want to learn more about Caroline's work, you can head over to her website, which is carolinemiller.com. She also has a special website for this book. It's at biggoalsbook.com. Caroline Adams Miller, author of Big Goals, A New Approach to Goal Setting and Achievement. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. This was really fun.
FOMO. If you like today's show, please be sure to rate it and recommend it to your friends. And as always, you can find me on Instagram at Patrick J. McGinnis, on Twitter at PJ McGinnis, and on the web at FOMOSapiens.com or PatrickMcGinnis.com, where you can get all kinds of free resources to live a more decisive and entrepreneurial life. FOMO Sapiens is recorded in New York City. Theme music is by Mike McGinnis, and editing and post-production is by Josh Elstro. If you like today's show, please be sure to rate it and recommend it to your friends. And as always, you can find me at FOMOSapiens.com and at PatrickMcGinnis.com. To advertise on FOMO Sapiens, reach out to contact@FOMOSapiens.com.